I know what some of you are thinking. Hero, don't you only wear this shirt during the week of St. Patrick's Day? And according to that calendar, isn't it only January? Well, two things. One, for all you know, I forgot to change the calendar for 2 months, and I just realized it now. But that's not the point. Two, this will be very relevant a little bit later. That being said, though, fitting the green theme, I'm going to change something in the background. We'll go with that. Much better, much better. Sorry to you Sanji fans out there, but green. So anyways, hello Internet, I am the hero of Julios, once again with another One Piece chapter summary. This week's chapter is chapter 1137, Introducing Shamrock. If you were just reading the title, that makes no sense, but it will shortly. So, the chapter, the artwork for this week is the infiltration of the mysterious building, because it's such a shock as to who's going to be in charge here. Who knows? It's a real who's who of who it could be. It's almost like we don't know who it could be in the entirety of Onigashima, given the cat-like exterior and the cat ears on the minions inside. I swear, if it's like page 1 or Ulti built this place, I'm gonna, first of all, real egg on my face here, but second of all, that would actually be a pretty decent subversion, because it's all kind of unless it's like a framed not important. Anyways, that's pretty much it for Yamato's current adventure, is the infiltration of the mysterious building. So the chapter starts off with our trio and Road entering into the castle and remarking about how absolutely gargantuan this place is. I mean, first of all, I don't know if you've ever been to medieval era like castles or cathedrals. Look up how big places like Notre Dame are. My guess is this castle is the giant equivalent of our castles here in the real world. Those places were big to us. So imagine a building that size compared to a giant in proportion. Now imagine a person having to walk around that. Because I mean, you see the giants in One Piece, they hold human beings on their palms. Which, as a guy who plays a lot of D&D, it is interesting to switch my brain between giants, because in regular D&D, giants are anywhere between like 15 to, I want to say 30 feet tall, maybe 32 on the really tall giants. I mean, these guys would barely come up to, I want to say the knee, maybe the waist of an actual giant in the world of One Piece. Really puts balancing into perspective if I ever make stat blocks for giants. I'm currently in the process of creating a One Piece campaign for my friends, which may turn into a series of videos here. I don't know, but if it does, I'll keep my stat blocks private so that I don't spoil things for them. That's not important to you guys. But the giants are giant, and it's a good thing they have Road here. Otherwise, poor Nami, she'd have to follow Luffy and Zoro. She'd never catch them both. Luffy would sprint off, Zoro would get lost. Fortunately for Nami, Zoro is also taking the relaxed route. He is also staying on Road's palm while they walk through the castle together. So Luffy is obviously marveling at the amount of carnage that has happened around here, just the huge battles that have taken place, which, as Road explains to us, this one particular room is the result of a massive battle between Harold and Loki. Two very prominent, powerful warriors. On the other hand, the next room they go into is a boneyard. Hundreds of buried, well, not so buried, but placed bones. I would assume respectfully placed, given that Road is worried about the vengeful spirits attacking them for disrupting the dead. But it's more interesting to actually look at the bones themselves, as Luffy jumps up and he grabs one of them and he's like, wow, this skull has horns on it. So Road goes on to tell us that among these dead bodies, some of them are giants who had the blood of ancient giants in them. The only survivors of this battle, mind you, were Loki and Jarl, which, as we saw, his sword impaling was completely negated by the fact that he was wearing a helmet. So that's, great. That's good. That's the whole reason he survived. But some of these giants obviously weren't wearing their helmets, which is why they died. So always wear your helmets, kids. Anyways, what's interesting to me about that statement is the fact that they have ancient giant blood. There's no such thing as a pure-blooded ancient giant anymore. So Ors and Ors Jr., they were like the last of their kind. I don't know if Ors Jr. died in that. Well, he probably died at Marineford. I mean, he did lose a lot of blood in his foot. I'd have to look that up. But regardless, the ancient giants are now a confirmed race. Not a they are an ancient version of giants, but they are also their own race, considering their blood is considered a separate trait. Some of their descendants, though, in the land of Elbaf, have those horns. What I find interesting about that is the way it's worded, though, is only some Elbaf giants have ancient giant blood. And it shows through in the form of their horns. But that's like saying some humans have ancient human blood. We all came from the original humans. So how do we, but then again, there's biodiversity across many different kinds of humans in terms of skin tones, teeth, hair color, eyes. So I guess that makes sense. I don't know. It's interesting to me that this is considered a separate category, but also, well, I guess that kind of ties into the next thing we'll talk about. So King Harold himself actually had ancient blood, which means his son Loki and his son Harudin also have ancient giant blood in them. But, unlike Loki and Harudin, his actually showed in the form of horns. King Harold actually had a pair of horns. Road actually shows us, as we're walking by, a portrait of King Harold himself, and there are massive scars on his head. You see, King Harold believed that the ancient giants were a violent, distant past that Elbaf needed to estrange itself from. Because of this, to show the rest of the world he was putting the vengeful past behind him, he tore out his own horns. That's pretty metal. I don't know how else to put it. That is a very violent way to show you are peaceful. Is to tear out your horns. But as Rhodes explaining the tearing out of the horns and the fact that, Loki and Harudin, are brothers because Harudin, took the death of the king far worse than anyone else given his upbringing, that's when Nami and Zoro ask, well, wait, hang on, if he's Loki's brother, doesn't that mean he's also a prince? And Rhodes explains to us, yes, but also no. Loki and Harudin are half-brothers. They have different mothers. And because Harudin's mother wasn't an Elbaf giant, he doesn't count. She wasn't allowed to be queen. She wasn't allowed to live in the castle. He wasn't allowed to live in the castle. And they were treated unfairly by the people of Elbaf. Zoro then goes on to ask, well, what does it mean to be a different giant? What do you mean a different tribe? A giant's a giant. And Rhodes like, excuse me? No, hang on. Look, I know, I get it. I kidnap humans. I enjoy pain, but I'm gonna call you out on that one. You're gonna tell me giants can't discriminate between each other when humans have been doing it forever? And Nami's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess this is no different than two human tribes warring with each other. So, yeah, carry on, Road. That's a fair argument. I guess a broken clock is right twice a day. And Road's like, well, thank you, Nami. I appreciate that. You're so wonderful and lovely. Anyways, yeah, but because of that, he's kind of looked down upon for not having pure Elbaf blood. Which then raises the question from Zoro, if you don't like his, lack of pure blood, why are you following him? Why is the rest of your crew following him? And Road tells us a little story. You see, when Rode was a little boy, he was picked on for being creepy. That makes a lot of sense, knowing Rode, but I'll get past that. Hardin saw the sea charts that Rode made, complimented him on them, and asked Rode to basically be his friend, to join him in his journey across the seas, because despite the discrimination that Hardin faced, he firmly believes that someday he will unite all of the giant tribes. Hardin's dream is to be the king of the giants, which is really fitting since the king of the giants will be a follower of the king of the pirates. The Queen of Alabasta works with the king of the pirates. The future queen of Dressrosa is a big fan of the king of the pirates. The future queen of Fishman Island is a big fan of the Straw Hat Pirates. The future shogun of Wano is a big fan of the king of the pirates. Luffy's really getting a lot of kings underneath him. Kings and queens underneath him. Really setting up a chessboard there, he is. So with that dream revealed, Luffy cuts off their thoughts by telling them, hey, I found some not skeletal giants. I found some not dead ones. They're just out cold over here, so we gotta go talk to them. And that's where we cut away. No doubt those giants will tell Luffy that red-haired Shanks attacked them, and that will be quite the shock, since definitely not Shanks is definitely the guy that did it, and definitely not Shanks is doing something right now. So you see, meanwhile, let's see, that's a little transition there. Meanwhile, Gunko is kicking the crap out of Loki. Now, mind you, Loki can't move, so is Gunko really that strong? Or is she just kicking a lion when he's in a cage and can't beat the crap out of her back? So as Loki's just sitting there tanking these hits left and right, we see she's wearing these like giant shoes. But the shoes are actually made of that arrow string that she was wrapping, around her arms and stuff, and that she stabbed through the wolf and all that. So I guess in addition to the arrows being like a controllable extra limb, she can morph them into things she likes or things she wants or things she needs. It's very similar to the string fruit. I mean, if Doflamingo can make a perfect doppelganger of himself that can actually talk on top of everything else, it's not too crazy to believe that Gunko's ability can make a pair of shoes. And eventually we see also a pair of gloves, like a big set of boxing gloves and these like grabber claws. I'm going to reveal this now. It is the power of the arrow fruit. So I was correct, technically, on sort of the naming convention. But the arrows dictate an inevitable future. One that she can put a pause on. But once it starts and she doesn't want it to stop, it will happen. She demonstrates this by sending an arrow right in front of Loki, and then a second arrow coming across the other way. And he says, okay, I'm starting to understand your power. You're going to kick me with your leg, and then while my head's up, you're going to punch me with the arrow that's going that way up. And she asks him one more time, are you going to join the Gods Knights? We are literally offering you something amazing, something peasants would only dream to have even mentioned as an offer, and you are still denying it. What do you say? Loki says no, and she does exactly what the arrows promise. They uppercut and punch. She then proceeds to do this many, many more times as we hear Loki's screams, and we see all of his animal friends who had come to help him have been impaled. It looks like each animal has been individually impaled once, and it seems to be the power of Definitely Not Shanks. Definitely Not Shanks then goes on to tell Gunko enough, as she's got like 16 arrows pointed at Loki. He's like, there's no more need to do this. It's clearly a waste of time. He's just not listening. And she goes, okay, last chance, Loki. And Loki's like, yeah, wait. Let's talk. And she goes, you gonna join? He goes, nah. So, yeah, big scream from Loki. We cut away to, like, the tree of Elbaf as Loki is screaming into the night. And as he's laying there, well, I guess slumped over, not we can't really lay down right now. Definitely not Shanks looks to Loki and sighs. And he says, "Yeah, it's quite the warrior spirit he has there. He would rather die than submit himself to someone else's will." And Gunko's standing there like, that's really impressive, but it's also kind of dumb. Is this like a religious thing? Like, is this how he, views himself or whatever? And he says, "It's not our place to worry about that. But since we couldn't get Loki to join, we'll take a different tactic. Send word to Maryjois, because we are going to take over this place. The giants of Elbaf once conquered the New World long ago, and it is time to make them submit to the world government." And that is when we get the big reveal. We get the little nameplate that says Gunko, Holy Knight of the Gods' Knights, with the power of the arrow fruit. She is an arrow woman. And that's when we get definitely not Shanks's name. Figerland Shamrock. See, it all ties back to the green and the shirt and all that. Figerland Shamrock, son of Garling. It does not say brother of Shanks, because for those of you who follow along with this, and we go about spoilers and we talk about things that happen in outside media like question corners and films, will remember that the only connection we have right now is the five elders found out Uta was Shanks' daughter, and then they said, oh my gosh, if she is Shanks' daughter, that means she has Figerland blood. Now, we know that Shanks adopted Uta, but they didn't know that, so they're making that assumption of blood there. But that did reveal to us the name of Shanks. That is Shanks' last name, is Figerland, which we then assumed was a celestial dragon name, because why else would they care about whose blood it is? Well, I guess they would have cared if it was like Edward, Newgate's blood, or Edward Weevil, that kind of thing. But anyways, we ran the assumption. Then Figerland Garling showed up, and we were like, oh my gosh, that's Figerland Garling. He must be Shanks' dad. Then we saw Garling in the flashback, and we're like, oh, he looks just like Shanks. He has to be Shanks' dad. And now, Figerland Shamrocks. So, that's kind of cool. I mean, honestly, as far as questions being answered, it's nice to know that definitely not Shanks is definitely Shamrock. It's good to know that this is not... all of you who believe in the Shanks' evil theory, put your pencils down now, because I have argument that anything you think evil Shanks did, Shamrock probably did it and just pretended to be Shanks. Or people who didn't know Shanks very well, or, as long as he hides this side of his face... Who's going to doubt that it's Shanks? So, we only got questions answered in this chapter, which is a really nice change of pace. I like when that happens. Don't get me wrong. I love new questions because that means the story is going to be longer. But it's nice to have a chapter where we just reveal things. King Harold, we know what he looks like. We know he has ancient giant's blood. We know Loki and Harden are half-brothers. We know Harden's dream. And most importantly, we know that Figerland Shamrock has a name. And I can stop saying definitely not Shanks. Let me know in the comments below if you think Luffy is going to get mad. Because let's face it, those giants probably going to tell Luffy that Shanks did this. Luffy's going to be mad. He's going to tell those guys, hey, that's a lie. Shanks would never do that. Zoro will tell Luffy to calm down. Nami will tell Luffy to think rationally. Luffy will try to beat up an innocent giant. And then we're going to go visit Loki. And we're going to have Figerland Shamrock versus Luffy. And maybe Shamrock has a devil fruit? Because, I don't know, those impaled spikes, they didn't look like arrows. So, he might have, like, the railroad spike fruit or something. But, whatever it is, we have a new character officially revealed. He's probably the silhouette we saw earlier, and I am looking forward to the shenanigans that come from this. Thank you for watching as always. I will see you in the next video. This is the Hero of Julios, Xing out.